All right, everyone. So welcome to our first special guest appearance here on the OBrienMagic YouTube channel. I'd like to thank all of you guys for watching. Today, we have a featured magician, Tyler Scott. We're going to be talking to him a little bit about what the different things that he's been doing lately. And he has a little bit of advice for you guys, something that's very passionate for him that he wanted to talk about. In addition to this, we also did a live Q&A segment in which you guys got to reach out and ask him some questions, and we're going to go ahead and get some of those questions answered. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is Tyler Scott, creator of Doubting Thomas, No Pressure, and Joker's Heist. He's also worked with Vegas illusionist Joaquin Ayala and is the co-founder of AGA Entertainment. I'm going to be putting some links to his social media so you guys can go check his stuff out in the description below. So, first of all, Tyler, welcome. How you doing today?
Great. Thank you for having me. How are you doing today?
Really well, really well. Thank you so much for being on my channel. We did an interview the other way around where I was on your channel a couple weeks ago. Turned out really great. And I wanted to thank you for having me on your channel as well. So welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here.
I'm a 23-year-old magician from Michigan. Lived in Michigan all my life. Born and raised here. I've been in magic for about 4 years now, which doesn't seem like that long of a time, and even now it still doesn't seem like that long of a time. But I've been interested in it since I was 6, and that's when I saw David Copperfield in 2001. It was I can't remember the name of the special, but I saw it on TV back when people watched TV and stuff like that. But I don't even know if you can find it on YouTube anymore. But yeah, so I saw that special, and I was like, man, who is this guy? He's got all this attention. I didn't even really know what a magician was outside of Sesame Street or something at the time. I think that was my only exposure to it, or some haunted magic kit I got for a gift or whatever. And yeah, I saw him, and I saw this trick where he showed someone going on vacation somewhere, and I didn't think it was too impressive because I was well, they just filmed that in advance. I didn't understand it as a kid. Even now, I don't think I quite understood what he was trying to achieve, just because it went over my head as a kid. But I just remember all the attention he got. I thought it was really cool. So I've been interested in it. I just never knew how to get into it. And then there was a special that came out a few years ago. Actually, it might be quite a bit over a few now. It was the Masked Magician, Magic's Greatest Secrets Revealed. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I got really into that. I was wow, okay, what? I'm gonna find out how they do all this stuff. And before they would reveal how they would do it, I always try to guess the method, because in school I was always wanting to be an engineer, and so I'd always try to find out a method. And I think I was right most of the time on how a method was done. I was oh, okay, cool. But what that show basically taught me was that in order to be a magician, you had to be really rich. I was man, how do you afford all these props? It's okay, so this is how you become a magician. You just have to be rich already in order to do it. So it's closed off or whatever. And then around 2014, I had some stuff happen in my life, and I don't really want to get too big into detail of what that was, but it's just I needed something new in my life. I needed a big change in my life. Mm-hmm. And I was at work. I was working as a teaching assistant at a college, and I was watching videos as the teacher was teaching, which probably isn't the best thing to do as a teacher's assistant, but I just put on headphones. I was something came across my Facebook feed or whatever, and I saw this video of it was a Kalen Rowley video of magician sells weed to a cop. And I'm what is this? And I watched it, and, I know how he did it now, but at the time I was wait, what? I was like, are like magicians now like these Justin Bieber wannabes? Because I had like wanted to be a magician before, but I was like, you need to be this rich dude. You need to be like this, like kind of flamboyant, kind of, I don't know, just like an eccentric millionaire kind of dude. But then I see this guy that's dressed like Justin Bieber. I'm like, wait, is this what the future of magic is? So I'm like, I have to investigate this. So I tried to find the clip on YouTube. I eventually did find out that his name was Kalen Morelli, and I saw this video called Wizard Lifestyle. And then all of a sudden, that exposed me to what the potential lifestyle of a magician could be like. I was like, I would kill to be like this. Like, every little thing in this video, I need to become this. Like, I don't know what it is I need to do, but I don't know. I just need to become this way. And then I watched another video by him called Dream, where basically he gives out the challenge to follow your dream. And I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm just going to dive head in now. And like, I just tried to absorb as many tutorials. I discovered Penguin Magic and spent like a boatload of money. I just dove in like really fast. And then like within a week, I was already trying to go out on the streets and perform. And I think like the first time I ever performed for people, I put the video up on Facebook or something. Like I watch it now, I'm just like, oh wow, like I might do like a reaction to my first performance sometime. But yeah, I mean that's kind of like the background, I guess, of like who I was before magic, and like what magic has done for me now is so I've been in it for almost 4 years now. I've created a few effects, which I still perform at like street magic and whatever. So if I'm just out and about, I'll use the effects that I created. I currently, like a paid magician. I get paid for working, which is actually something recent. Like I just started doing that last year. I have held my own headlining stage act that my entertainment company produced. And yeah, I mean, I haven't done like really any consulting work, but I'm a part of like a magic club, and I've just been a part of different online clubs as well with magic. So yeah.
Awesome, dude. That's so cool. One thing that I picked up on was something that's kind of like it's a really hot topic right now, especially in the magic community. I mean, it's always been a hot topic, but especially right now, pretty much every single forum I'm in, whether it be on Facebook or the Theory11 forums, all of these different places, people are really talking about exposure right now. I think it's interesting that so many young magicians see things on YouTube, or they see like the world's greatest magic secrets revealed with the Masked Magician, and especially like that stuff's like on Netflix now, so it's like super accessible. But I think it's interesting that a lot of magicians actually end up becoming magicians and actually going out and really working. And it's like, oh, how did you get into magic? And it's like, oh, I saw the Masked Magician special on Netflix, or oh, I saw a video on YouTube. Here's a good question for everyone, and maybe you feel free to leave a comment of what you think about exposure. But do you think it's harming the magic community, or do you think in some ways it might even be helping the magic community? Because like I said, this has been like a very hot topic in general. I'd like to know what you guys have to say about it. So if you can give one solid piece of advice for anyone that might be watching, maybe even some kind of anecdote that you have, or something that you feel really helped you as a performer, what would that one piece of advice be for any of the younger magicians that are watching right now?
I was going to give like quick bullet point ones. So number one, don't listen to what other magicians think unless it's a magician that you want to kind of bounce off of and reflect in some sort of way. There's going to be a lot of magicians that are bitter and angry about whatever it is that they believe magic should be, and it's a very opinionated kind of hobby or career, however you want to look at it. And it's just got people from all different sorts of backgrounds, so there's going to be like a lot of differing opinions. And especially when you get on the internet, there's going to be a lot of hate towards what you think it will be. And you just got to ignore it and kind of keep focused on who you want to be, and only really take feedback from people that you consider credible. So that's my first piece of advice, is not all criticism in magic is constructive. There are just people that simply just want to bring you down just because they don't understand you. Like, there's this Stephen Covey saying, I think it's Stephen Covey, first seek to be understood, then, or first seek to understand, then seek to be understood. I kind of messed that up, but I don't think a lot of people do the first part, which is seek to be understood. So that's kind of unfortunate, but that's life. And then the second piece of advice is be really careful with what you buy in Magic. Like, there's so much stuff out there that's just like fluff. Like, in trailers, you'll see it look like, if you buy this, it will make you God tier, and for like $50, you can become like this God tier person. As like a newbie, I was like, oh wow, like if I just buy this, I can do it, and it doesn't work that way. And honestly, if you just buy, like, or can learn rather than buy, if you can just learn like 12 effects and like master those 12, like, you would have a pretty decent strolling set. And if you just mastered like all 12 of whatever effects or routines that you want to do, like, you would kill it, and then you would save yourself like so much money. And just another rule of thumb that I have for like buying Magic, if there isn't live performances that look real in the trailer, it probably means it's not practical. So that's something I had to learn the hard way, is if there isn't live reactions in the trailer, there's probably a reason behind it. And that's just something that's negative in the industry today, that I feel like a lot of people take the lazy route with making trailers, and they'll like go in a studio and shoot it real quick, but they don't want to go out and test it in the real world and capture that kind of footage, which it is a lot more work, but it brings more authenticity to your effects. So I don't know. I don't like that. A lot of like major companies won't spend the extra time, the extra effort to go and get the live performance footage. So that's just my thoughts on it. So those are the two that I learned that really helped me.
Nick asks, why is Magic important, and what makes it different from any other art form?
Oh, the easy question. It's interesting. This popped up on a forum recently, and I didn't respond to it. And I think the reason I didn't respond to it is because I had a very negative answer to it. Because at the time I was thinking that what makes Magic different from like music or film or whatever artistic venture that is based around live performances, whatever it closely resembles, no other art form will receive the kind of criticism that Magic will. Like, say for instance with Electric Touch Plus, like, I cannot get that thing to work to save my life, but when it comes to like oh man, hopefully I'm sorry if I woke up Rihanna. But yeah, like, where it's blamed on the performer instead of maybe a faulty device. So I thought that was kind of like a crappy thing, that people are like, oh, you just don't take care of it very well, or you don't know how to use it, or you don't know what you're doing, when really it's just like, nah, this is just a crappy product. The other thing about like Magic is I kind of am going to now this is going to be on the more positive side. I kind of stole this from Nate Staniforth and Garrett Thomas. I think it was Nate Staniforth went to a Bob Dylan concert, I want to say, somewhere. Yeah, it was Bob Dylan. And he wasn't even a fan of Bob Dylan, but when he went, so being like, he wasn't even really a fan of his work. He said when he went, it was like a magical experience. Seeing Bob Dylan perform live, it was like this transcendent, magical experience. And Garrett's like, that's amazing, but musicians, filmmakers, like, they can all have this off day and still be regarded as brilliant and geniuses and, you know, highly regarded in their field. Magicians always have to have that transcendence, always have to have that magical feeling, or they're not doing their job right. So that's kind of like the positive side to it that makes it different than other art forms.
Really cool, really cool. Good question and good answer. All right, Dean Magic says, "Hey, Tyler," with the hang. What's your approach to creating magic?
Um, ooh, that's another easy one. So I really don't have an approach actually. A lot of my creations happen when I least expect it. So, like with Doubting Thomas, which is my first creation, I saw a video on YouTube. I know I got YouTube tutorials first, but it was by this YouTube account called Howcast, and they had like professional magicians come on and show how to do like these really simple tricks. And there was like this coin through the hand, and I don't really want to like give it away, but it's like so simple. Like basically, the coin hides in like the skin pockets of your hand, right? Like the webbing of your hand. And I got busted the first time I tried to perform that move, and I realized it was because I had to hide something, and it made it awkward, and like my hand wasn't free. It like had to remain in this one position. So I worked on this effect, and it took me like a year to put it out, where the issue of hiding something in your hand is gone. Like you can show your hand free, and then you can like move your hand around, you can like open your fingers, close them, whatever you want to do. Like it's pretty stress free. So I created that out of a necessity of I didn't like another method. And then no pressure, I created that when I was just like sitting in my apartment, and I drink a lot of water out of water bottles, which isn't like a good thing health-wise and environment-wise, but it was just something cheap or whatever. So I would always have like these empty water bottles lying around because I wanted to recycle them. And I just kept on like playing around with this one, just like, I don't know, bored. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I could crush it with the cap on? And then I was like, well, that would be cool. And I knew about Eric Ross's Crush, but I think it's off the market because the gimmicks just were faltering too much. And so I just came up with like a couple of different ways, I think 4 different ways to be able to crush a bottle with a cap tightly sealed on it, just because I had a lot of empty water bottles in my apartment. And I was just playing around with them, like, wouldn't it be cool if I could do this? So it kind of hit me out of nowhere for that one. And then Joker's Heist, the inspiration from that came from the Dream Act from Shin Lim. So I actually won the Dream Act in like a giveaway contest or whatever. And when I was watching Shin Lim's thoughts on it and the theory and all the stuff that he put into like the process behind it, a few weeks later I kept on thinking about what Shin Lim said about it, and then that's kind of how I came up with Joker's Heist. So it came from Shin Lim's style of creating something. And yeah, so there really isn't a specific method that I subscribe to. It just kind of happens out of nowhere.
That's cool. One thing that you mentioned was when you're creating magic, you kind of don't go into it with the mindset of like, what am I going to create today? It's more like you're trying to solve some kind of problem. Like, for example, with the coin vanish, you're trying to vanish a coin. The way that you learned how to do it doesn't work for you. So you tweak it, you play with it, and you turn it into something that works just for you. And in many cases, you end up discovering a new way to do something, and that's how you create magic. I take a very similar approach to it. I'll see an effect that I think could be made better or easier to perform, or the technique can be changed, make it more practical so it can be done. A lot of my magic is like classic sleight of hand that most people probably are already doing, but I've modified it in a way that makes it so that you can perform it without a table, because a lot of magic today you kind of need a table for. So, very interesting point. For any of you guys that are watching, if you're interested in creating magic, to kind of go along with what Tyler said, my piece of advice would be to get as much information under your belt as possible, learn as much sleight of hand as you can already, and don't necessarily just sit there and try to create magic. Just let it kind of happen naturally, because you'll find that the more that you really try, the more that, the more difficult it's going to be, unless you're inspired to do so. But really great answer. All right, we got two good ones. We got one from Aristocrat 727. How can a person help to think of original patter, develop patter for their act, to turn it from a series of tricks into a magical experience?
So I actually get asked this question a lot because double cross has kind of become like my bread and butter thing that I perform, and people see that I use it a lot in videos. And people see my review for it, and they have actually told me they bought double cross because of my review. However, when they bought double cross, they have no idea how to present it, because the tutorial doesn't really say like how you bring it into play, right? So they're like, how do you do this? How do you like develop pattern for it? And I just kind of look at, for when I develop pattern or original routines, I look at something outside of magic that I enjoy that maybe laymen might like too. So for the example of double cross, I'm really into film. Like that's my other side hobby is film. And one of the people that I really respect is Christopher Nolan, and he did a movie called The Prestige, which oddly enough is about magicians. And like there's this part, and it's like complete BS. Like no magician that I know actually subscribes to this rule of three thing, but I think it's cool. Michael Caine's opening monologue is like three great parts to a magic trick. First is the pledge. The next part is the turn. And then lastly is the prestige. And I mean, the monologue's a lot longer than that, but I try to condense it down for this interview. Basically, I try to memorize that monologue, and then I do the routine of double cross to that monologue. Like when I show the X on my hand, that's the pledge, and then when I take it off and flick it into the air, that's the turn, and then the prestige is when I can make the extra turn on their hand. So I mean, that's my approach to it. You can look at music, you can look at comic books, like fantasy novels, like whatever makes you happy and inspires you. Maybe try to take that joy and bring it into your magic.
I think it's very important to kind of reiterate what you said when it comes to coming up with your own pattern. In order for it to not feel forced, you should really draw influence from something that you really love. I've said this like a million times. I'm going to say it 1,000,001 times. One of my favorite pieces of magic, and most people's favorite piece that I perform, like my most requested piece of magic, is my Pokemon card trick. And the reason is simple. It's because it's something that people really care about. People don't really care too much about the fact that the card's going to the pocket. I mean, it's a fun plot, and it gets good reactions. But the thing that people care more about is the fact that it's with Pokemon cards. So if you can find some kind of way to add some kind of theme or to tie in to some kind of story, something that you're passionate about, I think that makes it feel a lot more real and not so forced. Dominus Dolorum says, do you have any projects in mind for the future?
So kind of going back to like that creating question. So I said this year that I'm done with like creating magic and putting out projects and kind of putting magic on the back burner. And then like I said, things just kind of hit me out of nowhere. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool too. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. So yeah, like I said that I wouldn't be like going hard at magic this year, that I was going to like try and focus more on like film and everything, which I mean I am. We're going to a film festival in 2 weeks that we got in recently, so I'm going to be doing that. But I don't know, like I really shouldn't put the cart before the horse, because I say that I won't do something, then like inspiration hits, I'm like, oh, now I gotta do it.
Now I gotta do it.
Yeah, so we've been working on a project these last 2 weeks. Like we still need to shoot some more. We have to shoot live performances. It's not going to be like a traditional magic release or anything. I'm actually looking to go more into like the educational side of magic, if that makes sense. So that's what this next project's going to be. It's not like putting out a trick to, you know, make money or whatever. Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
more to like educate, I think. So.
All right, last one, and this one comes from Facebook Live from this interview here. Christine Hubbard asks, if you could do it all over again, what would you do different? Or are you happy with what you have done and where you are?
So there are like a few things that I would do differently. And this kind of goes back to like the magic exposure kind of thing. I feel like there's like a right way and a wrong way to expose magic to people that are interested about it. And when I first got into magic, I had no idea about Mark Wilson's complete course in magic, and I had no idea about JB Bobo's Modern Coin Magic and the Road to Card Magic, and like there's like so many books and like old effects that I didn't know about that are actually like really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the majority of my learning from buying magic and like YouTube tutorials at the time. And it really made me a weak performer because I would just try to emulate what I saw on video and what I saw on YouTube. And then once I got into like reading the books, since I had to envision in my head what it would look like, I started envisioning what it would look like to an audience. And so like the theory kind of came with reading it from a book because I had to like put a little movie in my head as to what this will look like as I'm reading it. So that is like the one thing I would do differently is not buy like more money than I'm willing to admit that I put into magic in the beginning, and focus more on like the tried and true established classic effects and kind of master those, and then build the show after I've mastered the classics. That's what I would do differently.
Very cool, very cool. All right, Tyler, I want to thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. I hope everyone watching has learned something. If you have any questions that maybe you didn't get to answer live, go ahead and feel free to still leave a comment on this video, whether you're watching the Facebook Live interview or if you're watching this on YouTube. I'm going to try to answer as many of those questions as possible, and I'm sure Tyler will be happy to pop in every so often, take a look, and answer questions that he's able to answer as well. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And again, Tyler, thank you so much for joining us for this interview. I really appreciate it.